Hi, everybody. It's Susan here, and I wanted to talk to you about a bunch of things that I've been catching up on. The first of which is Mars squaring the nodes. That was exact yesterday, but it's still in application all this week, and it's still very tight today as I do this on Mars's day, Tuesday, to share this. Let's call it the cycle of Mars and the nodes, because I want you to have a look at this in terms of dates that you can track going a little bit back in time and a little bit forward in time. It's really helpful for your personal life to kind of notice how things are shifting according to the movement of Mars with the nodes. Things are quite fated when the nodes are involved. And Mars, of course, requires our action. And here we have the spiritual warrior. Mars is in Sagittarius. So it's action with a sense of ideology or purpose. It's really high-minded action that we want to take. It's inspired, but it's also something that might come from a sense of real deep faith and commitment as well. So we'll look at all of that, and we will also look at the conjunction of Mercury and Venus. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. It happens very, very often, but the fact that Mercury is winding up its retrograde cycle, and that's going to finish up in about 3 days from now, maybe four, Saturday. Mercury will be stationing direct at roughly where it is right now. It's moving very, very slow, 22.5 degrees of Scorpio. And so by the 29th of November, that retrograde is finished. But the day before that, Saturn will be stationing direct. And that's the other thing I want to talk to you about. And while Mercury is slowly stationing, Venus herself is moving in to create the grand water trine for the third time. Now, it feels like we've had endless grand water trines, and partly because every time a planet has gone to that 24, 25 degree of every water sign, so we've started with Jupiter in Cancer, and then we have all the planets that have moved through Scorpio through October, November, and now even into December, there'll be Venus making her own little triangle. And then we've had Saturn for a long, long time now, for 2 full months really, uh, expanding this groundwater trine. And now this will be Saturn's last 5 degrees of Pisces between the 28th of November. Universal time, I'm always using universal time, so you can add or subtract time according to where you live. And then it will just keep cruising right through the end of the last 5 degrees of Pisces until the 14th of February, when it goes into Aries to finally conjoin Neptune, that already went in there on the 30th of January. And then on the 20th of February is when we have this extraordinary configuration starting a whole new era, which is very much overlapping 2025 and 2026, much like this groundwater trine where the energy feels like it's just announcing something that is preparing for a big shift in energy. And we're having this experience of novelty in 2026. I'm talking about nothing less than novelty and constantly referring to rarity and events that we've never seen before in all of the 2026 readings that I'm busy doing right now. I'm delayed with those because I was ill and then I had to find time within my client appointments. So, because once the dominoes start to fall in the wrong direction, then everything goes wrong behind the scenes. So, we're still there, working on that. They will be ready by Saturday, but they will be available to everyone absolutely by Sunday, even if you've done a pre-order. And I'm extending the discount for those readings because I've had some glitches with the server. Bluehost had glitches on my website. It was down for half a day, then it was down another evening. And I do hear your emails and I see them. I can't always respond to everything. Sometimes you just have to come back and try again. If it says there's a server error or if it says the site is down, often it's not about the site itself, it's about the server. So just please give it an hour or the next day and come back. So this now, the sale price for all of these readings and including the all 12 signs bundle will continue until now the full moon in Gemini on the 4th of December, just to extend the blessings of the season. I don't do Black Friday, so I will not be announcing any extraordinary sales there. I suggest that Friday be avoided by everyone for the sanity of everyone concerned, including the health of the planet. So you won't find any Friday surprises coming on my site, so don't hold your breath for anything like that. But the discount that I'm offering now until the 4th for the all signs bundles has gone from one third off to 50% off. So now instead of 144 for euros for all 12 signs, it's now 72. And that's until the 4th of December. And then each sign is one third off. So it's 18 euros a sign instead of 27. And if you buy three signs, you'll get one free. So you have three for the price of two. And that should automatically take place when you're purchasing. So for those who've had difficulties, and again, I'll try and help you out, but it's most people are having no difficulties at all. So you'll have to check on your side step by step. Sometimes it depends on the payment situation as well, what the processor is, what your card is, for example, because you're coming from all over the world, so everybody's having their own version of issues. So I wanted to announce that, and I'm very grateful for each of you for supporting me by buying these readings because they're really the one way that I boost my income by selling directly to you on top of the client sessions that I do and the courses that I run. And I will announce courses in December. I'm not going to announce anything until the middle of December, so please, please, please stop asking me via email when the details will emerge. They will emerge in the middle of December, and I'm super happy that you're enthusiastic about it. But I just cannot keep responding to emails asking for bits and pieces of information that I've announced already is not available. So thank you for your patience and for your support. Super to feel so loved. What do I need to tell you right off the top? I think that's it. Oh, by the way, for those of you who still want to get the Saturn in Pisces discount, if you have Saturn in Pisces natally, until Saturn moves into Aries, you can still use the coupon code that was fearless dash fish, which has been available for the last 2.5 years. And I will put that again in the description box below. And if you have Saturn in Aries, then you can use the coupon code. What was that code? Self-mastery. Self-mastery for Aries. And I will put that in the description box below so you can get 10% off a reading with me. I'm afraid my schedule is full until March, so you'll get a reading with me, but after March, or at least in late March. So there we are. I think I've covered all the bases. I just want to now say that, yes, I told you all about the bits and pieces of Saturn and the grand water trine. So this is why I'm thinking about this in terms of a spiritual evolution, not only because we have the grand water trine and all of these extraordinary impulses. You notice that even we have the mini grand trine, it just keeps coming back again and again, even though the outer planets haven't fully shifted into the new signs yet. So every time planets come to the end of Capricorn, beginning of Aquarius, it's still triggering Neptune. It will still trigger Saturn, and it's triggering Uranus, which is still in Taurus until we get to the end of April. I'm giving you lots of details about these things in the annuals as well, so I'm not going to fill out all the details here. But basically, why I wanted to emphasize this journey of Mars is because not only is it ruling Venus and Mercury, as Mercury is retrograde, Venus and Mercury have just met in Mars's sign in Scorpio, but also it's creating this whole dynamic for us right now where we can really start to reconsider what it is that we want to take action on, have faith in, and in a way that is changing the way we go forward in life. So I'm going to give you a few dates with reference to Mars's journey. I'll back up just a little bit. Do you remember in the fateful days when Mars was retrograding in Cancer? Mars was at 6 degrees of Cancer when the nodes were at 6 degrees of Aries and Libra. And that happened on the 16th of September, 2024. So the 16th of September, 2024 was a square to the nodes, but in very different signs to where we are now. That had a lot to do with relational dynamics and our emotional connection to relationships and home and our individual needs and so on. And then as we're coming forward, and by the way, all the way a year ago, more than a year ago now, 14 months ago, Uranus was also at 27 degrees. It had gone up to that 27-degree point, you remember, in Taurus, and that's where it stationed to retrograde at that time. And before it came back to the 27-degree point this spring in May of 20, well, I say spring in May of 2025. So just to keep that in mind, because it's interesting that this also ties in so tightly with the groundwater trine and this Mars square and the shifting of Saturn as well. And we're still, if you think about it, it's like 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the past. We're just kind of stepping out of the sludge of what we've been trying to navigate over the last couple of years of intense shape shifting, where next year it feels like we're now having to figure out how to go forward because we're trying to manage what has been in the past that's dysfunctional now. Now are trying to figure out where we're going from here. If we come then to July of this year, July of 2025, on the 21st and 22nd of July, then Mars was conjoined the South Node. Do you remember that? There were a bunch of incidents. The Thai border was, there was an incursion with Cambodia, for example. There were issues that were being raised around the peace process with Ukraine. I will show you Ukraine's chart. I will show you Zelensky's chart as well, because the dynamic of Mars and the journey of Mars with the nodes going into 2026 is crucial for Ukraine. It is the sort very much the beginning of the end now, and I know that some of you told me I should be ashamed to actually say that Russia is winning this war and has been for a long time. Um, that's, my opinion is not my opinion. It is what I'm telling you is based in fact. And if that hurts your feelings, that's something I can't control. So I am telling you what is actually happening, and Russia is winning this war, and it will do so, and Ukraine will lose territory, and they will not do well. I think what we're finding here at the Mars Square has a lot to do also with the corruption scandal that we've just discovered. Well, again, if you've been paying any attention for the last 35 years, you it will be no surprise that Ukraine has a corruption scandal. It is literally Europe's most corrupt country and has been for the last 3.5 decades, and has been even publicly declared so up until Russia invaded Ukraine. And then all of a sudden that became something that was a Putin talking point. So, if you want to stay in the realm of sanity and reality, you have to leave mainstream media and see what's actually going on. And what we're seeing right now is that there has been a disclosure, even in mainstream media, finally in mainstream media, of the billions, tens of billions of dollars that has been funneled in from taxpayers in Europe and taxpayers in the United States and Canada into Ukraine, and it's gone. It's just gone. It has a large number of people from the cabinet of the Ukrainian government have disappeared. They've gone to Israel, they've gone elsewhere, but mostly to Israel. And Zelensky himself, of course, we know, has purchased several homes somehow in the last many years, and he owns, I don't know, 7, some people say 12 homes that are multi-million dollar homes. And so there's also an aspect of his own personal corruption, which is also being revealed. Again, no surprise to anyone who's actually realistically looking at the situation. So this Mars dynamic also has really strong geopolitical impacts as well. Um, and it's not good news for Ukraine, as we knew this would end badly. We knew this would end badly in February 2022. It was always going to end badly because we're looking at Russia. It's not any old country. Russia is a unique kind of country on the spectrum of size, power, and capacity. But there we are. So there we are. And of course, somebody told, I don't know, 2 or 3 people in a video recently said it was a really bad take to say that Russia is winning. Well, again, I'd say get real and get better news sources because you're clearly misinformed. And if you're getting your news from mainstream or from government official sources, you're not getting the actual news on the ground. So it won't be a surprise to anybody paying attention that this Mars in a square is creating severe damage within the East-West dynamic between NATO countries and Ukraine. Ukraine itself going to suffer. And then if we take it up a notch and we come to a personal level and get away from the geopolitical mess, we can also look at this as something that we're realizing from July, that when Mars conjoined the South Node in Virgo, so you can look for where Virgo is in your chart. At that time, by the way, it was squaring Venus. So Venus was in 19 degrees of Gemini at that time. So the nodes plus the South Node with Mars were squaring Venus. And there was some big issues there in July that we can look at personally as well in terms of relational dynamics, in terms of our desire nature, in terms of tensions between what we need to do and how we feel about things, issues around service and communication that are linked to the Virgo and Gemini dialogue. So think about that in your personal life. So again, the dates were 2021, July 2025. And then we come to now. We come to today, which is the day after the exact nodal square. So if we just back it up a day, we can see that Mercury was Mars was squaring the nodes from 14 degrees of the mutable signs. So the nodes are in Pisces and Virgo, which they still were also in July. And now we have Mars in Sagittarius. So Mars in Sagittarius is like the spiritual warrior. As I said, there's a lot to expand one's conscious awareness of why we're here, why we do what we do, having a vision for the action that we take. It's quite important because in terms of this dynamic in the South Node of Virgo, where we are in terms of what is perhaps causing anxiety or what is keeping us stuck in a feeling of service or in a feeling of inadequacy or in a feeling of frustration. It's something we're leaving, we're moving away from this dynamic, and Mars is now moving on its journey towards the North Node, and it will get there I'll just take this forward in March. And that will be on the 13th of March. And that's going to be close to the end of, and notice, by the way, at 8 degrees, when the nodes are at 8 degrees, everything's happening. So look out for February and March in general, because that 8 degree number is going to relate to the Venus conjunction, Mercury retrograde, Mars conjunction. There's so many things happening around that eighth degree. And each time it gets triggered, then it'll be the sun, and then it will be Mars finally on the 13th. Is that what I said? And so there's a lot going on around this eighth degree. And you will find even, hang on, we've got to the Mercury retrograde instead. Um, oh, I'm going week by week. That's why everything's going muddled. All right. So March the 13th is where we find the Mercury retrograding backwards to join up just days after with the Mars that is now conjoining the North Node. So we had Mars in the square to the nodes, now at that 14th degree of Sagittarius. Now Mars is conjoining the North Node. It conjoined the South Node in July last year, meaning this year, 2025, last year compared to 2026. And now it's going to start this new cycle, Mars on the North Node, and then it continues, and the journey continues in fascinating ways in 2026. So the next date as we go forward, so if you're losing track, look up here on the upper left-hand corner. This is where all the data is. The dates are up here. So if we go forward again, and we can go forward until Mars then is going to be squaring the nodes again in June, and that will be at the 0 point of, pardon me, Mars will be at the 0 point of Gemini, and guess who else is in Gemini at that time? Wait, we're going the wrong direction. What did I say? Oh, yeah, 29th of June. So let's keep moving forward. Mars is joining up with Uranus now, newly in Gemini. And remember that part of the dynamic of the last 18 months has been the story of 27 degrees of Taurus, where Uranus has been in relationship to this Mars dynamic with the nodes. And now what we're looking at, and where Gemini was at the first degree again, when Mars was in the South Node in July 2021. And now we have this, no, so yeah, that was still the end of Taurus. It was Venus that was in Gemini. And now we have this Mars squaring on the 21st and the 30th of June, squaring the nodes. And this is exactly the same day that Mercury goes retrograde. And when Jupiter then the following day, just hours later, goes into Leo. So that I suspect will be a major event. Something quite significant is happening here because Uranus is already triggering this mini grand trine now in the fire and air. And as we go forward into June, this extraordinary mini grand trine becomes a basket. Now, I talk about this quite a lot in the annuals, so I won't go into too much detail here. You can listen for your sign in the annuals and get much more personalized details. But now we have by the 19th of July, this extraordinary mystic rectangle grand air trine because of the moon. We've got this boat, let me get the moon out of the way so we can see better what's happening here. We've got this basket with Jupiter in opposition to Pluto, and that is holding for the few days before and after this configuration. So Jupiter will never come back to these degrees. Jupiter only it moves right through Leo, then comes only back to 17 degrees. So this is a unique event and among many, many unique events. And just to say that this is then, there's something else that's happening in this process until we get then to, so we had Mars squaring the nodes 29th of June, and that was 0 to 1 degree. And then we will have Mars in November on the South Node again. So much like we have this year in November, we have Mars on the South Node with Jupiter. So again, many, many extraordinary things going on here. That's on the 15th. And so they're going to track each other. So basically from, when does it begin? Let's call it from the 12th. We could say 12 for sure. I mean, these are already in, I'm just trying to be kind of fussy around the degrees, but these are in conjunction in the middle of November for a week on either side of this. So we get to the 14th, 15th, 16th, where it's all at 25 degrees, really, really tight. And that again triggers a whole new cycle. But this one is what I consider to be like a crescendo that will relate to what we're experiencing now with Mars square. And especially because if we look now at Ukraine, we see that the Ukrainian chart has Jupiter at this degree. It's the Jupiter return. Mercury is retrograde in the Ukraine chart. Let me put it the other way around. You can see better. This is Ukraine's chart. And then Jupiter, Mars, and the South Node are on the Mercury and Jupiter with Venus. Jupiter will only get up to 27 degrees, so it's a degree short of the exact conjunction, but it's absolutely powerful around the time that this is happening. And as I've mentioned in the annuals, there's a square from the sun that's building, square ruled by this Mars. The sun is squaring the nodes as well. So something extraordinary coming up again in November for all of us, and here specifically for Ukraine. So when we have the nodes affecting the key planets, especially here in the first house, the North Node is moving towards the Moon. The Moon is almost at 23 degrees. It's 2 and a bit degrees away from that. Saturn is being really strongly implicated this year for all the reasons of the ingresses, the novel ingress of the Neptune and Saturn cycle, beginning everything over again, because that also impacted the birth of Ukraine, the Saturn and Neptune conjunction, which happened in February, June, and November of 1989. It's happening again exact in February of this year, but ending that cycle and starting a completely different one. So it's really hard to overstate how much this year is going to change our geopolitical scene and how people are relating to certain countries and relating to leaders, because especially with the Jupiter Mars South Node in Leo, there's going to be some major change in leadership. That I think is a theme that goes all the way through 2026 for a variety of reasons, but especially once the nodal axis with the South Node going into Leo, and that's from the 17th of July. Is it 27th even of July? So many dates. I'm going mental. 27th of July, the nodes shift into the Aquarius and Leo axis. And then again in November, middle of November, we have this conjunction. And then Jupiter will station retrograde, and that retrograde station will be on the 12th, 13th, I think it is, of December. So that's that 2026, not this year. And so that will cover all that territory once again. But this is one hell of a Jupiter return for Ukraine. And if you're born in August 1991, then you'll also have some of these placements. So it'll be quite the year of transformation. But of course, people tend to manage more gracefully through transformation, depending of course, but it's a very interesting thing to pay attention to. I think we're seeing this year as the beginning of the end of Ukraine. It's the finish of the cycle of Saturn-Neptune. As many people often talk about, it has a great deal of impact in terms of the Soviet Union and Russia. There is no more Soviet Union, so it's a Russian Federation, Ukrainian Federation, etc. But it's going to impact them again. But it's not necessarily to the detriment of Russia, because what's happening is people are holding on to this Hollywood version of the good guy, bad guy narrative and expecting that there's some kind of grace that befalls the imagined good guy. And the truth is, we're at the end of a cycle. We're at the end of multiple cycles. One of them is 500 years. One of them is the Pluto cycle. One of them is the Saturn-Neptune cycle. All of these bigger cycles that are completely shifting the geopolitical power that we're dealing with here. And I will come back in late December or early January and talk again about the Saturn-Neptune dynamic and how that has played out over the last 37 years, and also how it's going to shape up going forward in a more geopolitical way. But you just have to realize, if you don't already, and if you think I should be ashamed about it, well, again, you can switch off and listen to somebody else, that we are in decline in the West. So I say we because it's all of Europe, every European country, every NATO country, and especially rapidly so the UK, Germany, and the US. And those countries will the decline is happening already. It's very significant already. And then what happens is the decline accelerates. So this is why, again, I want to emphasize this notion of the spiritual vision that we need to hold, because we're looking at Jupiter ruled Mars, and when Mars gets to the North Node, it will be a Jupiter ruled Mars once again. And then when Mars gets to the square, it will be a Mercury ruled Mars, just like it was last July. So we're going back and forth between these Mercury ruled Mars relationships with the nodes and the Jupiter ruled Mars relationships with the nodes. Things will start to shift then as we get into the Leo and Aquarius axis. And that will change the quality of the dynamic. So there will be more of a power struggle through the leadership and the people. That's the Leo Aquarius opposition, or sort of archetypal message. And here, what we're looking at still is a sense of action with a purpose, a higher meaning, a higher vision. And this is why I'm emphasizing this cycle right now for you personally, because I think with all of the transformation happening next year, you mustn't get anxious, you mustn't get upset, don't get drawn into all of this, but accept that this is the fate of the cycles of humanity. Everything happens in cycles, things going up, things going down. Cycles are regenerating constantly. There is no way to prolong this just simply because you feel that you're on the winning team. And so it's important to prepare yourself spiritually and to prepare yourself with a sense of purpose. And that especially is strong when we have Jupiter exalted in Cancer in a trine with with Mercury and Venus. Mercury is the cycle pump. It's the energy of receiving or transmitting the human experience to the spiritual and receiving the spiritual guidance to the human experience, the human mind. And it's to be in that dynamic, which is now ruled by Mars, which is currently ruled by Jupiter. and to be in this dynamic of what can I understand about this moment in time. And again, if we look at the movement of the moon, we had the moon in Capricorn at the time that this was all happening, and then the moon built up to an opposition with Jupiter. So if I just go forward, we can see that you'll see the moon jumping around here till we get to 24. Uh, sorry, not 24. Yes, it should be 24. It's not 25 any longer. So we see the moon then opposing Jupiter, which is the ruler of Jupiter. The moon is the ruler of Jupiter, but it's in detriment. And the way that I read this, because now we're looking at Saturn again, is here we've got this kite formation, Saturn ruling the moon. When the moon is in Saturn ruled, when the moon is in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, it's extremely pragmatic. There's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It doesn't mean it's incapable of love or whatever. It's just that it's extremely pragmatic. And I think this is how we need to be. This is at the time when the nodes were being very strongly squared by Mars, being pragmatic. And seeing solutions that are insightful, and especially because the moon itself is at the peak of the kite that's being formed here by the Venus and Mercury conjunction, the square from Mars to the nodes, and then the opposition from the moon that is ruling Jupiter, Jupiter ruling the North Node, Saturn, and Neptune, as well as Mars and the Sun. So there's so many interactions, and of course, I've almost forgotten our friend Uranus there. That Uranus opposition keeps happening as well each time something comes to the end of Scorpio, and that will eventually be Venus as she gets towards the end of the month. First, it's Venus, and then it will be Mercury as they make their way out of Scorpio. And so we have again this dialogue of awareness based on val. Oh, I'm going hour by hour. This will take us forever. Sorry about that. We have this dialogue of what we need, what we expect, what we hope for, but it's pragmatic now. We can't live in fairy tale land. It's just it doesn't help anyone to live in a land of wishful thinking, or on the other spectrum, to live in a land of anxiety and worry. I have many clients who keep talking about how they're worried about their children. They're worried about what future that will hold. It's not we have no control over that. This is the world that we have contributed to, and we have to think going forward, how are we contributing to the world now? Are we contributing to a better energy, a higher vision, a higher minded awareness of this world? Are we contributing more anxiety, more fear, more anger? Where are we on the spectrum? Stop waiting for somebody to rescue yourself or your country or whatever. We really have to think from a place of much more participation. And this is Mars. Mars has a plan. Mars is ready to go in Sagittarius. It's like, I believe in this. I know this. This is why I'm here. This is my mission. And it's because I believe this cause. And what is the cause? Well, it's Jupiter exalted in Cancer. This is the human family we're talking about. The cause is my connection to humanity and having a higher vision for that. Jupiter is trining Saturn at this time. I mean, it has been for a long, long time already, for many weeks, but it's in these moments of really tight trines that we get the best support. So this last week of November is really, really favorable for long-term planning and focusing forward on something that you want to engage in. And then we'll see that as everything starts to turn over, we see that eventually Mercury, what was that date? I have it written somewhere. Mercury will be moving super slowly because it's just coming out of retrograde. So for a long time, like really from the 5th to the 8th, but even if you stretch it a wee bit, from the 5th to the 8th of December anyway, Mercury is also adding to this grand water trine. You see, so there's so much to work with here. Mercury, again, as the cycle, and we even look at that on the 7th, we even have the moon contributing. How beautiful is that? The moon says, okay, I was practical, I was pragmatic, I saw things that I needed to do and that I could do, that I had capacity for, and I did them. And now I'm coming back to soak up some of that wisdom and optimism and a feeling of unity with my people, with my human fellow people. So this is really, really helpful. The Mercury shadow period began on the 25th and 26th of October, just so if you want to keep track again of the cycles that you're moving through. Mercury has been in this dynamic since really the end of October, and we even had again at that point this grand water trine. It's happened. This is really kind of the third time, but it just bleeds into all kinds of different times. So if we're only looking at that from the exact conjunctions, it's really the Venus trine that is the exact one. But we're going to extend it by another 10 days because it's so beautiful, so supportive, so insightful. Okay. Now, I notice also that there's a strong inconjunct here from Mars to Jupiter. Of course, the Jupiter ruled signs are, sorry, the Mars, what am I saying? Mars is ruling Mercury. Mercury is ruling the South Node. Jupiter is ruling Mars. And when Jupiter is ruling Mars in Sagittarius, its own sign, it's inconjunct. This is a fire sign. It's not, it's out of element. So on the other hand, when Jupiter is ruling from Cancer, Saturn, North Node, and Neptune in Pisces, that's a trine. So the adjustment is necessary. That comes again with the message of a quincunx or an inconjunct, where an adjustment is necessary, that it's difficult to really see. There's something that needs to be dealt with. And so it's actually just as well that we have the moon representing our mind, our heart, our emotional nature, helping to expand our sense of what it is that we are acting upon, because Mars is needing some kind of guidance, but the guidance is really already what we got from this grand water trine. I see it as something that we can work with on a personal level. If you're sitting back worried, if you're anxious about the world, if you're really now, the Mars is now tightly squaring Saturn, it will square Neptune. So there's stuff that needs to be done. That's the second week of December, and I'll talk about that again. I will come back with another video about the full moon in Gemini. But all I want to say is that don't just sit around like kind of thinking about things, and don't just sit around kind of wondering how are you going to manage, how are my kids going to manage, how are things going to be. It's time now to make a plan and have a sense from the inside out that you have capacity, that you are part of a bigger vision of humanity that is many, many thousands of generations old, and that we have gone through adversity as a collective memory many times over, and we are today. There's things that are happening that appear to be happening to people around the world. They're happening to us directly. And so we need to take that higher vision and take action on a higher vision, and just keep it to the degree that you can, where I can act from this place, I can do this much, and focus on that. Don't let yourself become completely disempowered or debilitated, because that serves the agenda of powerful people who don't want you to be thinking about what's going on. They don't want you to be thinking that actually the West has completely lost this war that they didn't need to get into nearly 4 years ago, for example. And that's where all the European economies and the American economies are suffering from, except for the military industrial complex. So we're in a very bizarre situation here in Europe, because the European governments, and especially the non-elected European Union, are pushing for war to continue. And it's absolutely absurd. We're in a situation where billions and billions and billions of European tax money has been thrown into a black pit for Ukraine. Those weapons already, even ABC, was it ABC or CBS News? Maybe it was CBS News, an American mainstream news channel, did a documentary at the very beginning of the war in Ukraine. I think it may have been February or March, or March, April, let's say, of 2022. You can probably still find it online, where the journalist was showing how the weapons that were being sent to Ukraine by the West were ending up in Africa, ending up in Sudan, ending up in Yemen, etc. Syria, and all the countries that have been at war in the meantime. So there's something deeply, deeply evil going on, deeply nefarious. And yet here in Europe, our leaders want to continue this. It's absurd. It's absolute madness. So we have to create something solid from the inside out. And this is where we, from this point on, we're looking at things as we are in this moment. And we're looking now as we go into the spring, into the early part of 2026. Sorry to my Aussie and New Zealander friends and South African friends and South Americans. So all of you in the Southern Hemisphere, forgive me for saying spring. It's just my quick sort of shorthand. When I do that, I know I do it a lot. But just keep focusing forward, focus into the next cycle, which is again coming in March when Mars will then be on the North Node. And where Pisces is in your chart will be where you want to put a lot of your attention. So that's that. I'm going to do a really brief run through the signs just to see how everybody manages around this dynamic and to show you what you can. Okay, I'm just going to take out the moon so we don't need to worry about the moon here. Just one more thing. I'm just going to put, right, I didn't mean to do that. I'm just going to put Aries on the top so we can find Aries to start with. Where did that go? I'm going the wrong way. See, I'm a little tired, folks. I'm a little bit tired. Too much screen time. Tell the kids it's not good for you, turns out. Right, here we are. So we're looking now at Aries, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. And this is going to, the square from Mars is in your ninth house of your vision. So you are quite literally in this energy. Mars is your ruler, and that really puts you in that ninth house of your vision. And the North Node is in the 12th house of what might feel like a spiritual ideal, or it can be, with personal reference, something that is taking you into your unconscious mind. You're very familiar with this part of your chart now for the last year almost, that you've had the North Node there with Saturn and Neptune, and even before that, Saturn and Neptune were there. So the North Node moved in the 11th of January. And so this is also connected to your work. And it might be also that you're realizing since Mercury has gone retrograde in your house of shared resources, intimacy, marriage, and also perhaps needing to discuss relationship issues or money and security issues, trust and safety issues with your better half or with your clients or with your business partners. All of this is feeding into that South Node in your sixth house, which says things have to be different from here on in. There can be this element of anxiety, especially because Mercury in Scorpio in the eighth house can, especially through the retrograde cycle, can drum up a bunch of fear and things that need to be looked at. And that would be something I would pay a lot of attention to because you're going to have Uranus going into your third house by the end of April, 26th of April, and that will stir up a lot of mental activity, a lot of communication. So you want to stabilize your sense of groundedness and confidence in your mind, in your judgment, in your attitude towards yourself, finding a friendly attitude towards yourself. That's especially the Venus here that can be really used at this time. Now, Jupiter is in your fourth house and retrograding there until the 11th of March, then comes out on the 30th of June. And that gives you a solid foundation for everything I've just described here, something that you can really work with. Because as long as Jupiter is there, you can feel this feeling of support. There's a feeling of a lot that is working in your favor in terms of your psychological or emotional state, feeling emotionally connected to family or supported perhaps in some way through the home, through how you feel of maybe you need to have more of a sense of a place to retreat to, but that will be as a way of understanding how you feel about yourself or how you need to create more foundation for yourself. And the Mars is almost an opposite energy. It's almost a contradictory energy. Your ruler is saying, we want to take action based on something that's important to us. But again, I would say that it's important to get clear what am I capable of? Um, like, for example, it's very easy to go out and do these marches and these political rallies and so on. And it's not really as effective as people would like to think they are, because it's nowadays it becomes a center of violence. It becomes a source of repression. It becomes something that is that is not really acted upon by governments because we no longer live in, or even if we ever did, in so-called democracies. And so we're in an era now where we're much better suited to taking action ourselves, to doing something ourselves. And certainly for you, Aries, with Saturn, Neptune moving into your first house, this could be a way of looking forward into the next year as well. So do get the year ahead reading if you want to understand more of the details of the year ahead, because this will feed into that. But your vision and your sense of purpose is really important now, and it might change how you show up every day. It might change how you feel about yourself, but keep it practical. Keep it to something that you can actually, deeply affect rather than just kind of showing up anonymously, yelling a bunch of slogans and then going home. This is where things get quite real. You know, things are we need things to change on a in a very real way that people can draw from other people's experience and talents and wisdom, skills, and really develop that. That's also for you, Uranus going in the third house, developing skills, developing new communication skills, new like handy skills, being very pragmatic again. All right. Well, I'll leave it at that, Aries. I think, with the groundwater trine, it's an opportunity for you to really come to a place of inner peace and strength. This will reinforce you as you're going forward on your mission, because Mars is going to take you way out into the top of your chart. It's going to over the next 3, 4 months take you on a journey out into the world until it then meets the North Node in Pisces as it's going through your 12th house and getting a sense of recharging from your deeper motivations, your unconscious motivations, or maybe even foreign motivations, because it also is Pisces and in the 12th house can represent foreign lands. And even your ruler Mars in the ninth also represents foreigners, foreign lands, and foreign philosophies or novel ways of looking at things. But it's about taking action. And even your exaltation ruler, the sun, is up there in the ninth house, the house of its joy. So there's a lot here that Aries is going to be working towards. And that's not just because of this, but of course, because soon you're going to have Saturn, Neptune reigniting some new cycle, in an important new cycle in your first house of self. So you're changing quite a lot. So find out what is driving the change. Don't wait for things to change. Take action and drive the change in a way that makes sense to you. Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Mars is in your eighth house of other people's money, its secrets, and what's hidden. When Mars squares the nose, especially from that sector, there can be surprises or new information that comes up. I forgot to mention that in the introduction, that this can also be where, when Venus and Mercury both oppose Uranus, there's new insights that are possible, things coming up in ways that are surprising or shocking. And that continues through this dynamic. I'll cover that again when I do the full moon. But this is possible. There's something that you're learning. There's an insight around relational dynamics or around issues that you're having to grapple with, perhaps with professional partnerships or clients or people that are important to you. And then Mars in the eighth house is pulling that relational dynamic into your place of intimacy, into where you are sharing things. And it can be something that requires adjustment. Jupiter's in your third house, so if coming to a choice point, using your willpower, making a decision. So you're well placed to make a decision that's more high-minded, especially as Jupiter is retrograding, reflecting over all the things that it has been asking you to look at, expand into since August 17th of last year of 2025. Sorry, I keep saying last year because I'm so focused on 2026. But it's really part of your vision for the future, because Mars is from the eighth house. It's squaring the South Node, releasing something of who you have been or how you've been showing up or what you used to find passionate and exciting or how you used to express yourself. And now it's moving in the direction of the North Node. They will coincide, they will come together at 8 degrees in your 11th house of the future and your social groups and the people that you need to work with in terms of a goal or a vision or something like that. So you're maybe the eighth house also represents other people's values. So it's second house is your value, your sense of your self-worth and the values you hold. And then the eighth house is that of others. And here maybe there's a dispute around that. You're looking outside and you're saying, I don't share these values. This is what I want instead. And this will be where the action is taking place. And that can be directly in an intimate relationship or an important partnership for you as well, especially as you've still got Uranus at the very end of your sign, going back to 27 degrees and then leaving your sign after stationing direct. I think it's the 4th of February and leaving at the end of April. So this is not going to happen again, this configuration. It's something that you can really grow into and develop for yourself. So you really look at, how things are feeling, let's say, in the intimacy of relationships. And that is not only sexual, it's also like psychological and emotional and so on. It's not just about jumping into bed with somebody, but can be that as well. And in that case, Mars in the eighth house can be pretty cool. Right, so that's that, Taurus. I wish you all the best. You're very grounded, but you can also, as a fixed sign, be a bit stubborn. Pluto is asking you to change the way you are out in the world, and this would be one of those times where you're really looking for something that you can manifest through what you have faith in, what you believe is important in terms of what how you're dealing with, let's say, your inner experience of life, your unconscious or inner experience of life. This also, of course, is occult and all of those kind of taboo things that are a little bit marginal, but it might be where you're finding your inspiration. For example, here with astrology, that you find some inspiration, and it's that you take forward as you go into the future through March when Mars conjoins the North Node then. Yeah, so don't let yourself be too passive, and certainly not if you're going to be passive and then complain. You're part of the problem. This is something to note for anyone, but especially the fixed sign of Taurus, which where your ruler Venus is in the other sign. She's stubborn. She might be, operating a little bit under the radar to get her what she wants, but make sure that what it is that you're working towards is really for a greater benefit, not just a personal benefit. All right, Taurus, I'll see you in the next video. Gemini, we find your ruler still retrograde, and as Mars is squaring the nodal axis in your seventh house, there might be something that you're learning about obligations towards relationships or issues around work that are feeding into business partnerships or client relationships. And Mars is squaring where the south node is in your fourth house of your sense of security, what makes you feel stable and secure. And Mercury is making you guess or wonder what's next in my work or what's next in terms of how I show up and in service perhaps to other people, how I am with other people. Mercury first stationed retrograde in your seventh house of relationships. So this is tied directly to that, and it will come through that in December when Mercury then finally moves into the rest of the seventh house until the very beginning of the year, and it moves into your eighth house. So there's a lot that you're working with here around issues of obligation and service that are feeding into Mars in that seventh house, asking you to take action based in the dynamic of relationships. And what you're doing now is going to feed into the North Node conjunction with Mars at the 10th house, your house of your social status and your career, your whether you're married, not married, whether you're employed, not employed, what are your ambitions, what are your drives, and that's going to highlight all of those subjects, but really powerfully because Mars on the North Node is extremely powerful. It's a dynamo where a lot of energy is expanded for ambition and drive, especially in terms of your social status and personal ambitions and career ambitions. If you're not working, it still applies in terms of what you feel you're here for. What are you still wanting to engage in life? It doesn't have to be about where you earn your money, for example. It's not necessarily that. Speaking of money, we do have Jupiter in your money house, which is quite favorable, and it's there right through till the 30th of June next year. Right now, we've got Jupiter retrograding and in a trine until Saturn then starts to move forward again after Friday. So this whole week is a fantastic time, and even beyond, really, into next week is fantastic time to make plans. What did I say for Mercury then? It's right up until the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th of December. So really great time to make plans, make long-term have a sense of where you're going, and it can have something directly to do with your work and employment, how you manage your money or the income that you get, and how you show up for it, how you are working in or out of integrity. Everything that is coming through the sixth house as it goes through the end of your sixth house into the seventh house. Your day-to-day is the sixth house, or your health, or your structures, your obligations and contracts and things that you have to deal with. They're all going to oppose Uranus on the way out, and this will be the last time that these inner planets are going to be in opposition to Uranus before Uranus actually goes into Gemini. So this will be a very interesting dynamic too, because it's again sort of ringing the bell as everything is changing. Something needs to change in terms of your insights around how you show up for yourself, where you might sabotage your well-being, where your unconscious mind might be inspired and creative and showing you something that you hadn't really intuited before. You've got Pluto in your ninth house of what you're here for and your sense of higher purpose. And that is already a huge change in the direction of looking deeper into something more meaningful for you. And as you go through this Mercury retrograde and finish the cycle, you might be pulling some of that in that might involve, a sense of what your everyday life is doing. Jupiter has been expanding your sense of values and what it is you feel is important to you, not just your own self-worth, but what you feel is your most important values that motivate you. And then Mars is again having you navigate things, negotiate, perhaps discuss, argue even with others in your relational sector about how to go forward with all of these things. So Mars rules the sixth house of work, and it rules the 11th house of your future for you, Gemini. And there's something here that is directly related to how you need to be more practical and pragmatic at this particular time, but with a sense of being guided by a vision or a purpose that has you put life into what you do. So you're taking direct action. You're not just sitting back and thinking about things, but it's coming from a place of I'm inspired, I'm interested, I'm motivated. If there is an issue in your marriage, for example, or a business partnership, this will reveal that, and the solution will come from the Mercury and Venus conversation they're snuggled up there in your sixth house of how to deal with open enemies, how to deal with challenges. The Uranus in your 12th house of enemies that you're not aware of so much can also relate to how people are undermining you, but not necessarily because they don't like you. Usually it's not that. It's because there's something that you are doing that might have upset them. And this would be with Mars in the seventh, where you'll probably have to tackle that or find out what to do about it. And if it's not about somebody else, because often it's just not, it can be about what you're doing again. Am I undermining my own success? Am I undermining my own happiness? Am I undermining my own capacity day to day? Again, questioning issues around self-sabotage, drug abuse, things that might hold you back in a way that is um, just preventing you from being here and now. That would be a really good time to do that, because also you're going to have Saturn and Neptune in your 11th house of how you reach out into society. So there's an expectation there that that will also change very powerfully from February. So feel this as a sense of what's next. Who do I also need on my team would be a good question, because that Mars rules that 11th house. Who do I want to be on my team? And this is the Mars squaring the nodes that can help you select, let's say, be selective. That's Mars as well, weeding out things, separating from things that are inappropriate. Okay, I think that's it for you there, Gemini. Not that's not it, but it's for now, it's enough. There's a lot going on. You do benefit from the groundwater trine, and that's in the Artha houses. The Artha houses are the houses of Artha means earth, the things that are concrete and tangible, the things that support us as we go about our day-to-day life, and they're the things of the three-dimensional experience. And so that's for you very favored at this time. So it's a good thing to establish again with a long-term vision, especially as the Saturn Neptune trine keeps up as well with the other benefic Venus on the corner of the trine this week. All right, Gemini, good luck with that. Cancer, of course, you still have Jupiter in your house of self, and the trine is happening in your houses of good fortune and dharma. The dharma is your purpose, your sense of why you're here. So you, above all, are, well, all of the water signs are very deeply connected in this moment to why do I do what I do? But you, especially because Jupiter rules your sixth house of work, where we find Mars squaring the nodes. And the North Node is in your ninth house of your sense of higher purpose, your vision for your life and what life is all about, what you have faith in. And it's being currently trined by Saturn. Saturn will station direct on Friday, the 28th, and then that will support you having a vision for yourself that is both about your day-to-day work and also about your vision for your life. Maybe also how to teach that, how to show that, how to represent that to someone as a mentor, counselor, astrologer, all of those different things that might be focusing your attention right now. So Mars is moving away from the South Node in your third house, where there's been a lot of change in terms of your everyday world, your local space, your family connections, your extended family, especially siblings, but extended family in general, your sort of everyday friends, like the people you hang out with in the third house. But it's especially related to the mind and how your mind is dealing with all of these things. And so, if there is any sense of anxiety or any sense of worry around what's going on here, how do I show up with all of this tension, all these difficulties? Mars is the solution in your sixth house because it's about higher minded action, taking action based on inspiration, taking action based on a purpose, taking action based on a sense of, again, dharma, this is my duty, this is what I do. Your fifth house of the other, there's 1, 5, and 9, which are the dharma houses, and Mars rules your fifth house. And that's where you show up. That's how you show up. That's why Cancer is kind of known for being purposeful and engaged, especially around children, fifth house stuff. Or again, this feeling of being self-expressed. It's part of Cancer's way of being that they show up with determination and with conviction, which is Mars, with the feeling of I got this, I got to take care of it. Despite people's image of Cancer as a weak sign, it's a cardinal sign. It takes action. And Mars is there from ruling the fifth house, taking that sense of commitment and action and personal inspiration and a sense of how you express yourself into your sixth house of every day. And it's ruled by Jupiter in your first house. So this is a significant time to really get clear. My everyday life needs to do, whatever, ABC, because I have this as my personal goal, my personal mission, and that will, for Cancer, almost always be for the betterment of someone else. It can be just the other person that you share your house with, or your pet, or it can be your whole neighborhood or a whole nation. Who knows? It depends on the individual. Saturn is ruling your house of relationship and the marriage house as well, and the house that of things that you share with other people, and it's in trine to Jupiter. So it's definitely uppermost on your mind. How do you influence others? How do you influence people that matter to you? With this vision that Mars is bringing into your everyday life, eventually, by the time we get to March, what did I say that was? My memory retention is disappearing with every sleepless night. Where are we? So the March 13th conjunction with Mars on the North Node, 8, 9 degrees of Pisces, you will find something now that motivates you in terms of this higher vision and action that is again a stimulus that takes you out into the world as we go back through this cycle again and again. And the next time Mars will square, it will be on the opposite side. It will be in Gemini, just as it starts to conjoin Uranus. So you're in for an opportunity to really just expand something that has been part of your vibe anyway, Cancer, but you're just activating that now. It's kind of like coming down to the wire. There's something that feels more urgent about these days. It feels more important to get a handle on. If you're too busy, this would also be something that Mars squaring the South Node can help you with. Stop all of the dynamics of wasting time. Focus in on the job. This is Mars in the sixth house. Sort out the work. The Sun, which represents your house of earnings and what you contribute and your sense of resources that you have at your disposal, which is you, sun ruling you, or your second house anyway. It's in your sixth house. So this is a time where you'll be busy and not just baking sort of holiday cookies. You should be focusing forward on your future and getting busy in a way that has deep meaning for you. And again, if deep meaning for you means feeding the chickens every morning at 7, that's your meaning. There's no hierarchy here. We each have a role to play. Through thousands of generations, people were just contributing in the tiniest little ways to the better functioning of everyone. It doesn't mean you have to have these grand gestures that are Instagrammable. You know, this is something that you want to really investigate. Where am I in my comfort zone and in my capacity? Where am I living up to what I consider my ideals? So this is your journey for now. And we'll be back with more about the full moon coming up in Gemini soon, so you can look at how things are going for the next week as well. Take good care, Cancer. And if you want, you can listen to your annual reading as well. I'm doing all these annual readings that you can look really, it's 2.5, sometimes more, 2.5 hours of content going through the whole year with inspiring anecdotes and things to relate to for the whole year. Okay, take good care, Cancer, and take advantage of that Jupiter in your sign as part of that grand water trine. You are you're on here, Cancer. Leo, this is happening in your fifth house. It's trinal to you. So Mars, when it's in a trine to you, is wonderfully dynamic. Your own ruler, the sun, is with Mars, and that is deeply inspiring. Lots of activity, lots of inspiration, and it's based on something that you're working towards a little bit behind the scenes with another person, or in terms of your security, financial security, and how that needs to look. You have been very independent and having to take care of business for yourself and for perhaps many, many other people. And this Mars in the fifth house may be an opportunity for you to see, especially as your ruler is there at the same time, to see, how am I showing up? Am I giving myself any time? Am I taking time for myself? Am I finding fun? Is there any fun in my life? And so Mars moving away from the second house south node, where Mercury, now still retrograde, is ruling that from the fourth house, it might have had you feeling like it's just been nothing but work, that you're having to slave away or work towards a feeling of financial security, or maybe you've been working towards your relationship dynamic that needed to be tweaked in some way with Pluto going into your seventh house. But Mercury retrograde in the fourth is also with Venus and showing you, how do I feel right now? How am I doing? Am I okay? Am I psychologically happy? Am I emotionally happy? What's lacking that I need to add to my life? And with Mars in the fifth house, it can be creative expression. It can be something of a hobby or a sport that you feel, I haven't been doing these things enough. I need to do this in order for me to get to this place of feeling a little bit better, a little bit more relaxed about myself and my life. The North Node in the eighth house is showing you what is life behind the mysteries of life. Like what similar to the 12th house, there's a sense of what is sustaining life, which is much more psychological and spiritual and mystical than often we give credit to, because we often think about food, for example, as sustaining life. But this is part of what is very important for Leo right now, is to get in touch with that spiritual sustenance, let's call it, the spiritual support. And Mars in the fifth is deeply inspired by that. And that can also be something that motivates you to create. I want to generate something based in what I feel is purposeful and has a meaning to me. Mars is the ruler of Aries, your ninth house, which is again your sense of higher purpose. So taking Mars from the fifth, ruling the ninth, it's whatever you do in a creative sense, whatever you do for all of these self sort of expansive ways of living is going to come with a vision of why you do it. Who am I as I'm doing this? Now, it may not all come completely established. This is what you're working on, and especially probably more clear once both Mercury and Venus move back in your fifth house. Well, I say back for Mercury. Venus hasn't been there yet, but Mercury started its retrograde in your fifth house. So it's tying in this sense of security and creativity and how you express yourself. This might have something to do with children. It might have something to do with money that needs to be dealt with around children, even to the extent of something along the lines of alimony or some kind of negotiation or expense that might connect you to children. So for some of you, this will be where you are, as the 10th house is also where we find Uranus in the marital sector or the social status sector, as well as Pluto in your marriage house. So for many of you, Leos, you're in a process of major change around your marital status or your relational status, and that may include children and things that need to be organized around them. So that might be part of the challenge at the moment, and the resolution will come in March. All right. Good luck, Leo. I'll see you in the next video. And now we have, of course, the South Node that is being squared by Mars is in Virgo, and this is you, Virgo. So there's something about you that you're realizing in your house of security and stability, what you need to feel secure. And it looks like with Mars there that there can be a need to take action, and that action might be something you need to do as a repair. Or as something practical around the household. Mars is very practical. It rules your house of skills and handy skills as well as talents and things that you can do musically or artistically. But this is also about with Mars in the fourth, it can be where you feel simply angry. The fourth house is your emotions, it's your psychological state, it's what makes you feel yourself on the inside, what makes you feel established and grounded. And you may be going through a time of real anger, that you may feel very frustrated about the way relational dynamics are going. You may doubt relational dynamics. Certainly, it looks like there's a lot of support for you in terms of having a sense of resolving whatever is going on right now, because Saturn will then station direct in your house of relationship, and it's holding on to this wonderful trine with Jupiter that is ruling it from your 11th house of your future and your sense of what next and where am I going with my life. And Jupiter's giving you loads of time between now and the 11th of March to reconsider all of that. And then again, from the 11th of March till the 30th of June, Jupiter is giving you the invitation to really redefine your vision for your future and who you should be spending time with, and how you want to maybe reach out into the public or reach out into society to do something that is connected to this vision. Jupiter rules Mars, and it's, of course, ruling your house of home as well as relationship. And so there's an aspect of this that can have you feel a little scattered. That's one of the things that can suggest a little anxiety again with Virgo rising, especially, or Virgo sun moon. It's the fourth house from you is ruled by Jupiter, and it's always on the go. And it can feel that home feels very unsettled, very busy. And if that's the case for you right now, which especially as Mars is squaring from there, it may be this could be a really good time for you to really grab yourself and say, get in the bathtub, go relax and have a massage, go and do something nice for yourself. So this is really about needing to take action on something that is constructive. Mars in Sagittarius wants, above all, to be constructive. And then, of course, Mercury is retrograding in your third house with Venus, and Venus rules your house of money, and she rules your ninth house of purpose. And they will both soon enough oppose Uranus from that ninth house of purpose. And so you might be realizing that there's some financial choices or choices based in values that connect with friends or third house Mercury or siblings, or connect with people in your everyday life that you are needing to somehow tighten the bond with or get clear around things. There may be secrets revealed. Hang on a minute, my dog wants to come in. Meta, you know you can push the door. Push it open. Good girl. I always have to remind her. So Venus and Mercury are together in this house of communication, and that's literally what they're doing when they're together. They're sharing information, revealing secrets, perhaps revealing ideas to you, because it's the house of your ideas and where you use your willpower, where you take action in a kind of a short-term sense. So lots and lots that you can work with here, Virgo, and grow into then into a more peaceful state. So the Mars don't let it rattle you. You might feel angry, but find out what's the source of that anger, and take it up a notch, take it into the highest possible experience of that because it's going to affect your relationships, not just now, but especially when Mars moves into your seventh house and joins the North Node there. So get clear on anything that's kind of rubbing you the wrong way below the surface, okay? And all the best. Best of luck with all of that. And Libra, your ruler Venus is there with Mercury, and she's applying to this big, lovely, beautiful groundwater trine that we've had since October, and that is holding right into the first week of December, even beyond till the 8th of December. And when Mercury then triggers it again. And so Venus, your ruler, is part of this really benefic energy of flow. And in your case, it's in the houses, what we call Artha houses. The Artha house means the earth-based or three-dimensionally based energy. And for you, this is very much linked to your career or your social status and your everyday world, your everyday life. So much of the last year has been focused on this. I know I've said loads and loads of things about this, so you must be wondering, am I just repeating myself and never renewing anything? But it's true because we still have Saturn-Neptune there in your sixth house, as well as the North Node. And Mars is in your third house. This is a place of a real busy, active part of your chart, where your everyday life becomes really, really busy. And that might be what you're feeling right now, where there's just a lot going on. Venus and Mercury have you thinking about your family, your values, your self-worth, but also what you value, and how you operate. And Mars is ruling that from the third house of choosing, and Jupiter is ruling that from the 10th house of your social status or your ambition and where you want to go with everything. And so there's a lot here that you want to consider around, what is the color of money to me? What is the value of things? Am I working too hard? Because this is really part of that. A trine is favorable. It gets energy going, but the thing is, you have to also look at what is it doing. Is it just having you go in the same direction and not really slow down and think? And so it's actually quite helpful having Mars in your third, squaring the nodes here between your sixth and your 12th, where you really have to sit with yourself and ask, am I overdoing it? Am I capable of, slowing down? And can I just sit for a minute? Can I just stop being there for everybody but myself? Can I choose more wisely in terms of my activities and what I'm doing here? I was just with a client now, and I gave him my favorite sentence for all of this sixth house stuff, which is, do I need to do this now? And you can ask this question here with Mars in the third house. Do I need to do this now? Do I need to do this now? Do I need to do this now? And do I need to do this now? So ask yourself those questions and reflect on that, because with Mars in the third house, what happens is you can feel super impatient, and you can feel yourself constantly driven to do things in a way that makes you grumpy. It makes you snap at people. It makes you kind of sarcastic or edgy, and then that creates its own problem, because then you're going to have Venus and Mercury that have to come in on the scene and deal with all of that through December or through your holiday season. And so you want to kind of get this clear right now, making choices. Mars is about separating things. It's about the yes and the no and the clear boundary. Saturn is as well. And so here with Jupiter in a trine to Saturn, Jupiter is ruling the Mars, ruling the Saturn, and soon enough into December, then Mars is going to be squaring Saturn. You're going to have to make a decision and decide. I'll come back and talk more about that at the Gemini full moon, but decide for yourself, where is my limit, and realistically, what should I be doing? Am I running around like crazy with a sense of not really achieving a higher purpose or meaning in what I'm doing? And of course, Mercury rules your ninth house of your higher purpose as well. And Venus, of course, is your ruler. She's ruling the eighth house too of your shared resources and what other people are doing. So there may be something also that needs discussing around how other people in your life are contributing or not, to what's going on. You might feel yourself just really putting a lot on the table, metaphorically or literally. All right, Libra, make the most of it. I will speak to you when we have a lovely full moon in your ninth house of purpose, which is trinal to you. So you'll be very happy to hear that. And I'll speak to you again then. Bye for now. And Scorpio, your ruler is in the second house for you, and it's squaring the nodal axis, which is in your from the south node in your 11th house of where you're going in the future. And that has been something you've been kind of letting go, not in the sense that you are directionless, but realizing that it's no longer that. And so the sense of maybe how you earn a living, where your money's coming from, how you spend your money, all of these different dynamics will be very, very solid here because the 11th house for you, or at least let's call that important to you, ideally that you're paying attention to those things because the 11th house is the house of gains also from what you do. And we have Mercury retrograding in your sign, but it started its retrograde in your house of money. So there may be something that you've had to redo around how you earn money. And now with Mars there, you have to really take it seriously and take action on it. The North Node is where Mars will meet up in your fifth house, where it is already squaring, being squared by Mars. And that North Node in your fifth house is about having fun and enjoying life and finding the pleasures of life, being in connection with someone you love, including your lover or children, it's romance and how you self-express. So you're setting something up that feels more solid and stable here as long as Mars is putting your attention on your values, on what is available to you, your resources, and so on. Mars also rules your house of work. So there's a lot here that really does reflect a sense of your work having a need to feel more vital, maybe, or that there's something you need to focus in on in terms of the value that you bring to work or the values that you get from work. What do I literally earn, especially if you're an employee. If you are a business person and you're an entrepreneur running your own show, you have a lot of support as well at this time because you've got Saturn-Neptune with the North Node in your fifth house of entrepreneurship. And it's in this, it's part of this configuration of the trine with Mercury and Venus, first Venus, then Mercury, and Jupiter in your house of purpose. And so soon enough, you're going to have a Saturn trine Jupiter in your sixth house up to your 10th house. I talk a lot more about that in the 2026 annual for your sign. And that's going to bring you a lot of blessings into your work. So whatever this is, it's good to clear this up before and have a sense of where am I operating from my values, or am I in or out of integrity? And what is it that I want to see by March, which will show up as how you express yourself, how you find your sense of purpose through, the life that you're experiencing. Jupiter will be in your ninth house of your sense of purpose all the way through till the 30th of June, before moving into your 10th house of your career. So you're setting yourself up here for a longer term way of seeing your whole life. And then Jupiter will meet up with Mars and the South Node in your 10th house in November. So what you're building here is ideally focused on your values, on what is solid for you. So it will take you to the next level, let's say, in the way you show up in the world. If this is around parenting, there's an action that is required that may feel like it's intense right now, but it's required, it's necessary. And then as we get through to December, you've got Mars moving into its exaltation in Capricorn in the third house, and that's going to be in a helpful kind of interface with Saturn by sextile, Saturn ruling your third house. So get busy is what I'm saying, but get busy based in your values. Get busy based in the thing that really matters to you right now. Let go of the opinion of other people. Let go of the ideas that other people have that you should be doing X, Y, Z, and go towards what it is that you know you should be doing, because this is the North Node in the fifth house. It's like, this is what I need right now. This is what I want out of my life. And Jupiter is reinforcing that for you all year long in the next year to come. All right, then Scorpio, I will see you in the next video. So Sagittarius, you feel very strong at this moment with Mars in your sign, all fired up and getting you all kind of all kinds of busy. When Mars is in the first house, we can often feel really powerful, really activated to get things done and take action on things. This has to do with perhaps yourself as a physical form and taking care of your physical health or doing more for your health, taking care in general of how you're feeling. Jupiter, which is ruling you, is in your eighth house, and that also has to do with your psychological nature or dealing with things that are psychologically supportive. For example, getting over fears, where now you're taking action on that. Mars is squaring the South Node in your 10th house of career and your way of showing up in the world in general, or who controls you, or who are your authorities. And here, you're your authority with Mars in your first house. It's like, yeah, I got this. I'm good. This is me doing me. And Mars is the ruler of your fifth house of self-expression and how you reach out into your life, as well as your 12th house of what makes you tick behind the scenes. So your kind of unconscious motivations. And Mercury has just helped you kind of work through those things, especially with the support of Venus in your 12th house, working through patterns of behavior that again might be holding you back in ways that you hadn't really appreciated. And now with Mars squaring the nodes and then moving in the direction of the North Node towards March 13th of 2026 at 8 degrees, 9 to 8 degrees of Pisces, you're activating something in yourself that you will find the result of in what makes you feel stable and secure going forward. And this is certainly the work also of Saturn and Neptune in your fourth house, along with the North Node, putting a lot of time and energy into building yourself from the inside out. And a really beautifully supported energy of reconstruction as well, because Saturn and Jupiter are in a trine, and Saturn will be stationing direct on the 28th of November, so Friday, for many people, and then that will be in a trine with Venus as well, and she will then move into your sign. So you have a lot of energy building through the month of December. For many of you, this will be your birthday to have Venus, the Sun, Mars, and then Mercury even in your sign. This will be your literal birthday if that's your sun in Sagittarius, but even if it's your rising sign and moon, it will deeply, deeply impact you. Uranus is still having you reconsider your everyday life, and this is part of that dynamic because Mercury Venus will oppose that from the 12th to the 6th. So you'll really be looking at how do I work, how do I operate with this Mars here? Literally, how do I show up? What are my drives and ambitions? And how is that working for me in terms of my work-life balance or in terms of my sense of overdoing it or feeling compelled, etc., feeling pushed to do things. The sun that's ruling the ninth house is with Mars that's ruling the fifth, so that's pulling in this grand fire trine. It's not the planets aren't there yet, but it's there energetically in terms of the trine, and that's both in your place of right on your lap there in Sagittarius. So you're pulling in your sense of how to express yourself and why you do it. Why do I do what I do? This is even more in line with who you are, because the sun rules your ninth house. That's the place of the joy of the sun, the road to God, the higher-minded vision. And of course, whenever we have the sun in Sagittarius, that's literally what that represents. And so you're embodying this now. With Mars there, you're just taking action on it. So think in terms of what's coming in March, and again through the rest of the year, and you'll see that what you're establishing now, what you're taking action on, based on what you believe is important and what you feel inspired by, is going to start to manifest as you go into March. All right, good luck with that, Sag. I'll see you in the next video. Capricorn, this is happening. Your exaltation ruler, Mars, is squaring the nodes from your 12th house to the ninth house, where we find the South Node, which is your sense of purpose, your vision, your higher meaning in life, your religion or faith in general. It can connect you to your father, can connect to things that have to do with what you want to learn or teach as well, especially because the North Node is in the third house, which is about practical everyday things, and that's where we find your ruler. And your ruler is about to station direct And wait a minute, you have to just wait. My dog is trying to get my attention, but it's too early. And so your ruler is there in your third house, trying to be as practical as possible. And Mars behind the scenes can be a little disruptive because Mars in the 12th can have feel energetically like a lot of disruption, a lot of frustration and activity that is difficult to sort of pin down. And the best way to use that is to get busy with a research project, with planning and strategizing for a future thing. And you might consider the future thing to be when Mars meets up with the North Node in March, on the 13th of March, 2026, which is about something practical, something about communication, perhaps something that you need to teach or learn, a skill or an idea, a concept that Mars is going to be right now busy dealing with, but it's coming from this change of heart, or it's coming from this feeling of, okay, I used to think this was important. Now I think this is important, and it's got to be grounded in something. It's got to be more practical. So again, your ruler is about to turn direct for the last time in your third house. You will not have this again. I'll talk about this again as we get close to the full moon. I will repeat and repeat again all of these different shifts that we're going through, where you can then find Saturn going into your fourth house, squaring you, and having you take things more seriously in terms of the foundation for your life, and that you already experienced in the middle of 2025. So what this is here with Mars can be something that you're really working on behind the scenes, and including even just thinking about it. If you have what can be described as a hidden enemy, this will be something that you want to take action on as well. This might be how you relate to yourself. It might be how you relate to friends, or friends that that are causing emotional upset or distress. If there's some kind of stress going on, if there's some kind of anxiety that comes from the unconscious mind, or behavior patterns that are potentially self-destructive, then you want to take that seriously, because you can use the opportunity with your ruler in the third house, with the North Node, and with Jupiter in the seventh, to consult with somebody who can help you on that. Jupiter in the seventh can be a great counselor, a psychologist, a guide, somebody that helps you out. Venus and Mercury are focused on friendships for the future, or maybe gains from what you do. Venus rules your 10th house, and focusing on what to do about that. And then they will also join in your 12th house. So you'll have a lot of activity there along with Mars in the next couple of weeks, really up until the end of December, the last 10 days of December. But that square to the nodes turns into a square to your ruler Saturn as well. So then there's some action that's going to need to happen behind the scenes. It might be also with reference to foreign lands and travel. The South Node in your ninth might have you, for example, having to change your travel plans, or a vision of where you needed to go, like a conference or something like that. And now with Mars in the 12th house, there's some complication or something you need to rearrange. Mars usually it requires some kind of work, or something that you need to do. There's action that needs to be taken. And again, as I mentioned in the opening to this video, it can be about spiritual action. So how do I take action based on something I feel is important spiritually? And so it can also be not necessarily tangible, but it's with the attitude that you're bringing. That can also be part of the bigger dynamic. So I would need to see your chart to see how that's playing out. Mars also represents loss. Um, it can be financial loss, it can be loss of a friend, loss of a concept or a job or an idea. It again depends on your natal chart. But in this sense, there's a feeling of I can deal with this. I'm working on this. This is hard work, but I know why I'm doing it. And so it's not necessarily so painful. And sometimes loss, if we think about a job or some other material type of loss, can actually be incredibly motivating. And this is what this feels like with Mars in Sagittarius. There's a deep sense of why I do what I do. And that's driving your third house of willpower and communication. So write a book. If you're not sure what to do, sit down, write a blog, write a book, research, try and figure out what the heck is going on in the world around us. Okay, Capricorn, I'll see you in the next video. Whoops. There we go. So Aquarius, of course, you've still got Pluto there. I'm not going to talk anymore about Pluto, I promise. Here we have Mars in the 11th house, and Mars is squaring the nodes that are from the south node that Mars is just leaving now, in terms of the square, separating from the south node. It's in the eighth house, and that's your house of other people's stuff, money, opinions, things that they bring to you, resources that you can receive from other people, whether they be partners or like life partners or business partners or clients. And with Mars in the 11th house, it's a house of gains and also your future. And so you might be really hyper focused on what's coming down the pipeline. Mars rules your 10th house of career. And so you might be receiving something from your career directly, like there's some kind of new, I don't know, bonus at this time of the year for many of you, or it might be a sense of I want to ask for more, I want a pay rise, because Mars is also going to come up with the conjoin the North Node in your second house of money, where we find your ruler, Saturn. And so money has been a big story for you over the last 3 years, pretty much. And with Saturn now about to station direct, your ruler is going to leave Pisces, clear the last 5 degrees of Pisces, and move out before the 14th of February. So it's a really fast journey of 2.5 months now with Saturn moving out of your second house. So because Mars is squaring the North Node and then will conjoin the North Node there in your house of money, you might find the results of what you're working towards right now in March, on the 13th of March. Um, and part of this dynamic can also be, again, with reference to a vision that you have that you want to do this new thing. And how will that impact your family, for example, because the second house is also family. And the fourth house is where we find Uranus still until the 26th of April. And Jupiter is also ruling your 11th house and your second house from your sixth house of everyday obligations, the obligations you might have as a family person. That's Cancer over there too. And so there may be something about changing home or changing the family situation for whatever reason. Things might be changing in the construct of the home or who lives there or what's going on there. And that can also have an impact on your vision for your future. If it is about something to do with a social group or a network or society in general, then Mars out there, squaring the nodes from the areas of values and shared values and how I fit into that dynamic of what are my values. Where Mars is quite active, very bold, but can also be very have a strong leadership quality, especially because the sun is up there at the moment and emphasizing that tone of leadership. The sun is ruling the seventh house of relationship, and Mars rules your third house of siblings. And so there can also be something in the dynamic of a relationship with a sibling, especially an elder brother, and otherwise perhaps an uncle or even a cousin that might be older than you. And alternatively, it can be that you're actually meeting a new love. Mars also is part of a relational dynamic, and that perhaps especially so because then Venus will come in soon after from Mars's sign, that you might be meeting somebody from some event or something that you're connecting with socially. But it has a purpose. It's something that you have faith in, you believe in. Um, I think that kind of covers it. I'm pretty sure we've got those things down. So the Mercury retrograde continues from earlier when in October it was in your 11th house and has moved back into your 10th house and now is moving out again. First Venus, then Mercury. That continues with this groundwater trine, which is in these houses of how to establish a foundation for your material well-being and your social status and so on, what we call the Artha houses, the second, sixth, and 10th, which are kind of foundational to the everyday life, to constructing your everyday life. And then Mars is ruling that 10th house. Jupiter is ruling Mars and your second house. So you're constructing a vision around this that has to take you forward in time, take you into the future. I think we've covered it, Aquarius, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now. Pisces, you're also part of this grand water trine, and your ruler Jupiter is in the fifth house from you with Mars at the top of your chart. So you're looking at something that is about your ambition, how you show up in the world, how you are dealing with hierarchical figures, and whether there might be some kind of test with hierarchical figures that you need to establish, a working rapport with, or people that might push back against you, or you need to stand up for yourself more, for example. You do have Saturn about to turn direct in your first house of self. And when Saturn stations direct, it's going to hold on to that grand water trine as it's already been doing since October. And it carries right through till, I think I said the 8th of December, finally, when Mercury comes through that point and triggers that last sort of 25-degree point. So you are personally concerned by this because once Mars leaves your 10th house and goes through the other signs, finally by your pretty much your birthday time on the 13th of March, it's going to be with the North Node at around 8-9 degrees of Pisces. So that if that's your birthday time, then you're going to see the fruits of this ambition and the thing that you're doing, where you're going, how you're planning moving forward by March. And as Mars is separating from the square to the South Node that's in your seventh house, this might also have to do with a change of relational dynamic. You might be deciding that actually this particular person or that relationship is not really uh, it's not really what I am or who I am. It doesn't reflect what I want. Mars is very focused on a sense of vision, and a sense of doing something purposeful and meaningful. And we've got Mercury with Venus also in your ninth house, kind of really focused on the joy of expanded minds and a vision for life and connecting from a place of meaning and purpose as well. And of course, Mars rules that. So it's really an interplay of bringing meaning and purpose out into your career, into the way that you show up. And especially so because Mars is going to be coming towards that North Node where it already is asking you to show up more on your behalf or show up quite literally more. And Saturn, of course, has also been part of this dynamic of maturing and becoming more responsible for yourself. But there's a sense of joy about it now that wasn't there last year. Because now, since the middle of 2025, Jupiter has been there, and now at the end of 2025, Jupiter is trining Saturn and saying, you can express yourself with a sense of confidence and joy and with a meaning and purpose that serves more people. Because of course we're looking at Mars in the 10th house. People look to you for that guidance, or they look to you for the inspiration. They look to you for where you're headed, and then that becomes the path that Mars is taking as you go through December, January, February, and into March. So you're kind of showing the way as a pathfinder. I think Pisces is often described as one of the more spiritual signs. It's not true that they're the only ones, but certainly the more tending naturally to be in a spiritual bent. And this is certainly a particularly strong spiritual signature at a particularly unique time for everyone. And so you can be somebody who can show the way and allow people to see that change is good. This is the mutable signs help people to see that change is necessary and good, and we can move in a flow towards the next thing. And this is Saturn in a mutable sign in a square, about to be squaring Mars in a mutable sign. And then the Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus trine is adding to that idea. The trine is a flow, just like the mutability, just like the changeability. Um, I think we'll leave it there, Pisces. I need to walk the dog. She's been asking me for a little while now, so we'll take the dog out. I will once again mention that my annual readings are still on sale now for an extended period until the full moon in Gemini, which I will get to. That's in your fourth house for Pisces. And please do avail of the 3 readings for the price of 2 offer. And also, if you want all 12 readings, you get that for half price, 72 euros instead of 144. and it's my great joy to be able to guide you through 2026. There's such a lot going on, and it's a truly extraordinary year. It's an amazing time to be alive. So see you in the next video. Bye for now.